Welcome back to another week of refinishing. This piece might look a little bit familiar. I redid a set of nightstands a little while back that was the matching set to this long dresser. The restoration of those nightstands came out beautifully. I really couldn't have been more pleased with the result. And I'm now ready to tackle this long beast of a dresser. It's going to be a lot of work. I do intend on making them a matching pair still, so I am going to use all of the same techniques that I used on those nightstands. I'm going to be removing the old base, creating a new base. This will not only help it to match the nightstands, but also give this dresser a little bit more height, in my opinion, that it really needs. It's a little bit on the shorter side, and I do find that a lot of people do like having slightly taller dressers nowadays. All in all, it's in fantastic shape. It really does have very minor damage, very minor wear and tear. There's a little spots here and there, but the biggest thing is I just want to give it a fresh finish and just give it that durability back that the years might have taken off from this original finish. I also plan on keeping the original brass hardware. They just really need to be polished, cleaned up. The tarnish needs to be buffed away and they need to be relacquered. So follow along as we tackle another large, exciting vintage piece of furniture this week. It's time to strip this dresser down. I'm going to remove all the drawers. Make sure that they're labeled with the correct positioning, the correct orientation that they seem to like to slide into. I want to label all the ones on the left side and 1, 2, 3, depending on the positioning of them. After that's all done, I'll go ahead and take off the hardware. All of the little inset pulls on these pieces, the little key cutouts, as well as those brass corner details that are found on these campaign style pieces. All of those will be set to the side and I will clean them and polish up that brass later on. With the dresser flipped on its back, I am going to address that base that I will remove and replace with a different leg and base set. This particular dresser did have caster wheels on the bottom, which was very, very useful for this concealed type of base, but they won't be needed anymore. I will keep them for future projects because they're in good working order. I'm just going to hammer off the original base. It was glued and screwed in, but with a little bit of prying and hammering, it came right off. By taking the base off now, it's one less thing that I have to strip and get around to try to sand and maneuver in order to get all of that old finish off. I'm now going to get started on the stripping process. I'm hoping this strips pretty well. I know the nightstands were a little stubborn, but with a good layer of chemical stripper, typically it eats through pretty much any finish. It's also relatively chilly where I am today, and that will also help this stripper not overly dry out while I'm trying to work with it, which really does help a lot. Taking a disposable chip brush and plenty of that stripping product, I am going to go ahead and get it on the entire flat top surface. When it comes to chemical strippers, I do like to work in sections, so I will do this entire top, scrape it back, and then work on the next section. Before I go ahead and apply stripper to the drawer fronts, I do want to tape off the holes where the hardware is installed. If I don't tape those holes off, the stripper will fall through and make the insides of the drawers pretty messy. As it is, I'm really trying to avoid getting stripper in those inset areas where the handles do sit in. It's just going to be that much messier to try to clean that thick, gelatinous stripper out of. I have to admit, a little bit of it did get in there, but with a little bit of afterwash and a paper towel, I was able to get it out. After about 15 minutes or so, I was able to strip this back, and it stripped really well to my surprise. I swear when I did those nightstands initially, it did not strip this easily. Perhaps it was just extremely hot the day that I tried to strip those nightstands. Really, with this product, if you can prevent it from drying out, it will work so much better for you. For me personally, I find it easiest to work on the flat horizontal surfaces. So for a long dresser like this means getting it up on its side. It prevents that stripper from dripping and losing all of its thick coat that I want to sit on the surface so that it can really work for several minutes instead of trying to catch the drips that keep falling off. Taking a 120 grit sandpaper on my orbital sander, it's time to address all of those surfaces that I just stripped. You can really see stripping a piece does not mean that you're getting rid of all of that residual finish and stain residue. It still needs to be sanded ever so lightly just to take up whatever is left behind. This wood grain is absolutely beautiful. The more I uncover, the more I really truly am falling in love with it all over again. I knew it was going to be pretty, but when it's on such a large surface like this, you really get to appreciate how beautiful the actual designs in that wood grain are. The entire body of the dresser gets this sanding treatment until all of that is removed and clean again. The main key that I'm trying to focus on here is not to sand too roughly. This dresser does still have some delicate wood veneer on the surfaces, and while it still has quite a bit of surface area left, meaning I shouldn't have to worry about sanding through any of it, I still want to be delicate with it. And when it comes time to sand the trim details on the front, I am grabbing my detail sander with a foam interface pad. This will help me to curve around those curved areas. Now this part is solid wood, but I'm still going with just a 120 grit sandpaper and going gently because I want to keep the integrity of those curves and not flatten anything out unnecessarily. I picked up one of these neat little detail sanding blocks. It attaches right to your sander and it lets me get in areas like the edges of the drawer fronts just to really make sure to clean it up. This is an area that I probably would have had to hand sand previously, and this just helps me save some time. When it comes to building and constructing the base, I'm going to take my measurement based off of the dresser and subtract 3 inches total on the long and short pieces to account for the 1.5 inch width legs that are going to go on all 4 corners. I do want to make sure to be careful and get all the pieces exactly the right measurement so that when I'm putting it all together, it's perfectly square and I'm not fighting any mismeasurements in that regard. I did decide to cut these legs to be 6 inches tall. It is going to add quite a bit more height than it initially had. I personally like 6 inches when constructing these type of bases. It just looks well balanced to me. Like I mentioned previously, I am using exactly the same staining method that I used on the nightstand so that everything matches and is cohesive in case somebody wants to keep these as a matching set. That process starts with this water-based stain. It's in a special walnut. Whenever I'm using water-based stains, I like to take things in sections. So for that reason, it makes the most sense to stain all of the different pieces of the legs and base separately and then put them all together once that stain dries. One of the perks of water-based stain is that it dries really, really quickly. So by the time I had finished staining and wiping back the body of the dresser, I knew that the legs and base components would be dry enough to start assembling them together. I'm using pocket holes and pocket screws to attach everything. I also like to use a really thin spacer block just to add a little bit more dimension between the actual legs themselves and the base. A set of clamps really comes in handy when it comes to holding that base on exactly where you want it when you're getting ready to screw and attach it to the actual body of the dresser itself. I'm using plenty of screws and plenty of holes to really make sure I have a nice firm grip and that it's not going to go anywhere unless somebody wants to actually move it. These nylon foot pegs are a lifesaver for not only brand new built bases, but pre-existing bases too. I always make sure that my pieces of furniture have some sort of protection at the bottom of the actual wooden legs themselves. My stain is all dry and now it's time to make that magic. I am gonna first go ahead and top coat this just with my clear top coat. Again, like I did with the nightstands. This is just gonna provide that initial protection and coverage, and hopefully my idea is to allow that toned top coat to go on that much more smoothly, that much more flawlessly. The key with that toned top coat is to get it on as evenly and smoothly as possible. I'm using a water-based polyurethane. I'm gonna give it a really, really good stir to make sure all those components are combined. And using a fine mesh filter, I'm gonna just get this into my spray gun. I'm really just looking to get one generous coat of this clear top coat on before I move to my tinted top coat. I don't want to spray it on too thin. I want to have good coverage, but it's a fine balancing act of not getting it so thick that you get drips or runs in the vertical pieces. And now it's time for that fun part. I'm going to mix up the tinted top coat. Just dump the rest of that clear top coat from my sprayer into this mixing container and then add a very rich dark brown color. I'm just eyeballing this. It's pretty forgiving in my opinion, but I do want to make sure I have plenty of that water-based brown paint in and thoroughly incorporated and mixed in with that top coat so that it actually does provide some tinting and warmth to the piece once I build up multiple coats. That clear top coat does definitely need a very, very fine sanding before I do add the additional layers of top coat. I will very lightly sand between each and every coat of top coat. This just helps to prevent any little dust particles that might have settled in the top. I am opting to spray the drawers in so that I have nice, even, long strokes, and I'm not getting any lap marks or duplicate strokes that might build up too much coverage in a certain area. That first coat goes on nice and smooth. I want to try to do my best to overlap each pass by at least 50%. And just make sure to try to get an even amount of product on all surfaces. With that first coat dry, I move on to a second coat, and you will see with each subsequent coat, the color does darken, enrichen, and deepen, and also even out. This is my third coat, and by the time this third coat is going on, it's really has changed quite a bit. You can see that it's nice and rich, deep brown. And for that final fourth coat, I'm going to apply it on the top again, long even strokes, and really get that beautiful color I'm looking to get in the end. One of the last and final steps is to polish and clean up all that brass hardware. In order to do this, I am going to put all the hardware in a special pot that I keep to the side specifically for actually cleaning hardware. I use a mixture of about 50% vinegar to 50% just regular water, and I'll set that on the stove and let that boil for roughly 20 minutes to really loosen up that grime. Once that's all done, I will take some Barkeeper's Friend on a very, very fine steel wool and really just buff that solution into the surface of the brass and help to polish it. I take my time and make sure I get in all the nooks and crannies, rinse it off, and then dry it off really, really well on a towel. The last step is to re-lacquer everything. If I have handles like this, I make sure to spray them both open and closed so that I'm making sure to get all areas of the handles that might get use. As we do with every makeover, let's remind ourselves what we started with before all this process. There really wasn't a huge change. I'd say I was able to cut down some of those orange tones, obviously brighten up that brass, and most importantly, make that finish strong and durable again. This piece really wasn't terribly distressed, terribly damaged, anything like that. There was minor wear and tear, but once you start to see that finish fail, it's only going to get worse as time goes on, and I wanted to just give it a new look. And here it is. It's so beautiful. I knew it would be. Those nightstands ended up being stunning, and so I knew this dresser would be too. It just goes to show what a little bit of time and effort and work can do to breathe some new life into a piece. I hope this piece gets decades and decades more use and functionality for its new home, its new owner. It's absolutely beautiful. I really could not have been happier with the way it turned out. Comment down below. Let me know what you think. Did you like this transformation? Did you think that the color was going to be able to be matched to the nightstands? Do you like that drawer lining? Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe.